Rain poured like it had no end, soaking the city streets in a restless gray. Wind howled between tall buildings, pushing umbrellas backward and making people quicken their pace, heads down, lost in their own worlds. Among the hurried crowd, a young woman stood still, Rachel. Her hair clung to her face, her jacket useless against the cold. Water dripped from her sleeves as she stood outside a gas station, shivering, her lips trembling not just from the chill but from exhaustion. She stepped toward a man in a suit, his phone pressed to his ear, his briefcase shielding him from the downpour. "I don't want your money. I just need help," she said, her voice almost drowned by the rain. He glanced at her, just for a moment, before walking past without a word. She didn't shout or plead. She simply turned to the next person. And then the next. Each time, the same hollow silence or averted gaze. It wasn't until an old woman with kind, tired eyes approached that something changed. She held an umbrella that barely covered her, yet she slowed down and looked Rachel in the eye. For a few seconds, they just stood there, two strangers in the rain. "Are you all right?" the woman asked softly. Rachel shook her head, eyes welling up. "I just need help. Just a place to rest, just tonight." The woman nodded slowly, her voice gentle. "Come with me, dear. Let's get you out of the cold." Under the narrow awning of the gas station, the rain thundered on the metal roof above them, a steady reminder of the storm outside. Rachel huddled close to the wall, her shoulders tense, arms wrapped tightly around herself. Margaret returned from her car with an old but clean blanket and gently draped it over Rachel's shivering frame. For a moment, neither spoke. The world was noisy, cars splashing through puddles, the hiss of tires, but between them, a quiet stillness settled. Rachel hesitated, glancing at Margaret as if unsure whether to trust her kindness. But something in the woman's eyes, calm, warm, real, opened the door. In a soft, worn voice, Rachel began to speak. She didn't go into detail, but her words carried weight. An abusive stepfather. A mother who turned away. One night, a bag, a bus ride, and the hope of something better. She had a job interview lined up for the next morning, but no place to sleep, no food, and nothing left in her pockets but a few coins and a name she was trying to remember, to stay brave. She didn't cry. She looked like she had used up every tear. Her face was tired, pale, and far too young to be so worn. Margaret listened without interrupting, without judgment. She reached out and gently touched Rachel's hand, offering the kind of comfort that didn't need words. After a long pause, she said, quietly but firmly, "Let's get you out of the rain." Margaret's apartment was a small second-floor unit with creaky floors and mismatched furniture, but it felt like a different world to Rachel. The moment she stepped inside, the warmth wrapped around her like a hug. The soft glow of a table lamp lit the cozy space, and the gentle aroma of chamomile tea filled the air. Rachel stood at the doorway, unsure, until Margaret smiled and pointed toward the bathroom. "Shower's warm. Towels are clean." Rachel took the longest shower she'd had in weeks. Hot water poured over her, washing away not just the dirt but the weight of everything she'd carried for so long. When she came out, her damp hair wrapped in a towel, a plate of soup and bread waited at the table. She ate slowly, quietly, almost disbelieving that this was real. Margaret didn't ask questions. She simply sat nearby, sipping tea, nodding when Rachel spoke and letting silence fill the spaces when she didn't. There were no lectures, no pity, only presence. Later, Margaret led her to the guest room. The bed was small but soft, the blanket freshly laundered. Rachel sank into it, her body relaxing for the first time in what felt like forever. As she reached for the pillow, she noticed a folded piece of paper resting on top. In careful handwriting, it read, "You are not alone anymore." Rachel held the note close to her chest, tears finally slipping down her cheeks, not from fear or pain, but from something she hadn't felt in years, safety. Morning sunlight streamed through the kitchen window as Margaret handed Rachel a cup of coffee and a brown paper bag with a sandwich inside. "You've got this," she said with a smile that made Rachel feel like maybe, just maybe, she really did. Dressed in a neatly pressed thrift store suit Margaret had helped her find and carrying a borrowed purse, Rachel stood a little taller than the night before. Her hands still trembled slightly, but her eyes held a quiet fire. The bus ride to the office felt longer than it was. Every stop felt like a test of her courage. But she kept hearing Margaret's voice in her head, "Show them who you are." Rachel walked into the building, her resume folded neatly, her heart pounding. The receptionist smiled. That helped. In the waiting area, she smoothed her skirt and took a deep breath. The interview wasn't perfect, she stumbled once, forgot a word, but she was honest. She spoke about responsibility, about starting over, about how hard she was willing to work. And she didn't pretend. When the manager glanced at her resume, he raised an eyebrow, then looked at her. "We've seen worse resumes," he said, then paused, a smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. "But I see someone who doesn't give up. You're hired." Rachel froze, eyes wide, and then a slow, stunned smile bloomed across her face. For the first time in a long time, her future wasn't just a dream, it was beginning. The air was crisp, the city humming with its usual rhythm as people rushed past the shelter's entrance without looking twice. But Rachel noticed her, curled up near the stairs, a hoodie pulled tight over her face, a duffel bag tucked beneath her knees like it held her whole world. Rachel, now dressed in business casual and holding a warm coffee in each hand, paused. She remembered the rain. The fear. The way it felt to be invisible. Gently, she knelt beside the girl and held out the extra cup. The girl flinched, her eyes darting up with suspicion and sadness. Rachel didn't push. She set the coffee down beside her and said softly, "I don't have much, but if you need help, I'm here." There was silence for a moment. Then, slowly, the girl looked at her, really looked at her, and something shifted. Maybe it was in Rachel's eyes, or the calm in her voice. Maybe it was the warmth of the coffee, or just the rare feeling of being seen. But it was something. Rachel smiled. A real, knowing smile, the kind that says, "I've been where you are." As she sat beside the girl, the voiceover gently echoes. "Sometimes, all it takes is one person to believe in you. Not for your money. Not for what you offer. Just because you matter. And that can change everything." And as the city moved on, a small act of kindness planted a new beginning, just like it had done for Rachel, not so long ago.